1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Greetings, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Read My Mind Radio, where we continue with our second season of 2022, flipping the script on audio description. If you're new here, it's very nice to meet you. I'm Thomas Reed, host and producer of this podcast, and I'm glad you found it. If you've been rocking with Read My Mind Radio, let me say sincerely and from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and I truly appreciate you. Have I ever told you how much I enjoy hearing from listeners? Sometimes it's just finding out how you learned about the podcast. Some people like to let me know they enjoy it and why. Others tell me a bit about who they are, or just let me know they support what we're doing here. That's my man throwing down. All of that is fantastic and truly appreciated. If you ever want to reach out, please, readmymindradio@gmail.com is the email address. Feel free to holler at your brother. I don't know if y'all know this, but the Read My Mind Radio family is truly around the world. We're not just in the States.
Yes, ja.
We get some love in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Africa. That's right. We on the motherland. Oh, yeah, and I'm definitely not forgetting my people up in Canada. I truly rock with y'all, Canada. I'd love to hear from more of my Caribbean brothers and sisters. Puerto Rico, DR, Jamaica, Trinidad, Haiti. Come on, I know y'all out here. This is a podcast, so we don't deal with boundaries. We deal with energy, and there's no border patrol for that. We don't need no stinking passports. Read My Mind Radio family, come on. Have you told a friend about this podcast? What kind of friend are you, just holding all this goodness to yourself? Sharing is caring. Baby girl, tell them what time it is.
Let's start the show. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Read
My mind.
Read
My mind.
Hi, I'm Nefertiti Matos Olivares. I am a bilingual voice talent and professional audio description narrator, quality control specialist, and writer. I also do a lot of work in museum accessibility, everything from writing scholarly articles to representing my Latino heritage at the first of its kind Molina Family Gallery at the National Mall, the Smithsonian Latino Center. I advocate a lot for healthcare, assistive technology, Braille literacy. These are our lifelines in a lot of cases. I spent a long time teaching folks, sort of helping them even the playing field in their own lives a little bit through technology too. I keep busy.
She's a hustler, baby. She just wants you to know. It ain't where she's been, it's where she's about to go. If hustler has a negative connotation for you, then swap that with entrepreneur, go-getter, driven, motivated. For Nefertiti, it's rooted in the quest for more access.
Yeah, I live and breathe this sort of thing every day, the inaccessibility of a world that was not built for me, and having to constantly make my own space just about everywhere I go. I believe in my innate worth as a human being. I know that I have a lot to offer. I claim my power and my value, and I take that with me everywhere I go and hopefully make waves so that other people behind me can tromp on into the river too and get what they need to get out of this life and be their best selves, as cliche as that may sound.
Can we talk a little bit about early life experience with inaccessibility? If you want to mention anything about your blindness.
I was born fully sighted and everything was okay till around 3.5 years old. I started exhibiting some odd behaviors. I had an astrocytoma, a brain tumor, and it was stopping the blood flow to my optic nerve. They were able to remove it ultimately, but it came at a price.
The result was blindness and no other complications. Growing up in New York City, Nefertiti attended schools for the blind through high school.
I knew there was a world outside of that. I have a sister and I have cousins, and I knew there was mainstream stuff, but I kind of enjoyed being a big fish in a little pond. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything in the blind schools. Plus, I could be in sports in a way that I knew I was never going to be allowed to be in a mainstream school. In these schools, I was able to be a cheerleader and run track and be on the swim team and all these things. Then college came around and it was a very different experience. I had to really reckon with my blindness now that I wasn't protected anymore, now that I wasn't around everybody else being like me.
Unfortunately, this story is not unfamiliar. Leaving the comfort and generally accessible environment of the School for the Blind and entering a college, Mount St. Vincent's, about an hour and a half from home, Nefertiti first realized not everything is built for her.
By the time I got to college, Braille wasn't a thing. This was a private school. They barely had any funding for a disability office. Heck, Thomas, the first year I was there was no disability office. It came into play because me and another blind student joined. And then there was a student who identified as having a learning disability. And so they had to put something together.
She was forced to largely find her own way.
To figure out what technology would scan my books for me, learning screen reading technology more than I already had in high school, upping my typing speed. I had to do that pretty drastically because I was doing a lot of papers and even just the campus itself. It was on such rocky, hilly terrain. And at that time, I was refusing to use my cane. I never used it in the blind school because in the blind school, I was considered somebody who had some sight. But in the real world, I'm blind. In a setting like that one, in the dark especially, I had some really close calls and some really kind of dangerous situations I found myself in. But because I was too proud and too embarrassed and too ashamed, I didn't use my cane while I was in this school.
Living on campus, not using a cane, definitely taught her some valuable lessons.
The stress I put myself through just because I refused to put that cane in my hand, and how much easier it would have been for me if I had accepted myself as a blind person back then.
The image of Nefertiti that I have is one of a strong, confident, proud woman.
That finally did come, but I put myself through quite a bit before that happened. I had internalized a lot of ableism in my life. I just decided something had to give. And if this is the body I have, and these are the things I have to put up with.
Things like additional health challenges and relationships.
And that's when I put myself in therapy and went back to school and got myself in better shape. I was a triathlete for a time. There's got to be better. And if there's going to be better, then I'm the only one that can make that happen for myself. That's really what has transformed my life into what it is today.
Today, Nefertiti's playing a role in flipping the script on audio description. That's both on this podcast and more so by using her voice in various ways. As far as AD goes.
And then pandemic. That's what happened. The pandemic happened. I'm not unique in this. A lot of people had found themselves rethinking and reevaluating situations in their lives, and I was no exception. And one of the things that I found myself really thinking about was my job at the library and the fact that I was there already for 7 years.
That's the Andrew Heiskell Braille and Talking Book Library, a branch of the New York Public Library over in my own stomping grounds on 23rd Street. Shout out to Baruch College, City University of New York.
I was teaching blind people mostly, but anybody with a disability and mainstream folks too, how to use technology. In the case of blind people and people with low vision, it was teaching them how to use the accessibility features in their mainstream devices like iPhones and things like that. I would also teach screen reading technology.
She facilitated workshops on HTML code, working with Google products like Docs and Calendar, iOS apps, and even more lifestyle-centered workshops on getting more active. Oh, and by the way, that's in English and Spanish también.
And you did one on games because I attended it.
Yeah. That was a fun one on games that you could do on iOS, like accessible gaming.
Over her 7 years working at the library, I imagine she was able to really directly contribute to helping lots of people not only learn their technology and more, but really provide a foundation for their career and personal pursuits. But she was ready for something new.
Honestly, I really believe in making room and making space. I wanted someone else to have my job. I don't believe in scarcity. I think that there is a myth around scarcity, that once you have, you need to hold on for dear life, or that you need to continue accumulating. I think there's enough for everybody. That goes for everything. I just got to a point where I felt like I've learned everything I'm going to learn here. I've gone as far as I'm going to go. I want to leave this open, hopefully even better defined than when I started, and with more possibilities for growth for the next person to come in. During the pandemic, I did a lot of soul searching and a lot of therapy too. Therapy has been a constant thing in my life since I started taking it seriously. Accepting the fact that I wanted to do something else. I wanted to leave a space for someone else to be employed. A blind person, a person with a disability, leave an employment opportunity open for someone else to come in with their own flavor and their own view on things, to continue the work, because it's very valuable, very important, crucial, beautiful work. And I decided to pursue a passion. And that passion is specifically for audio description, but more generally, voiceover work.
I know what you're thinking. Leave a good job? You're disabled. 50 to 75, maybe 80% unemployment rate? Anywhere on that spectrum is bad. She admits it was scary.
Again, the pandemic happened and I was like, let's get real here. You're not really happy. And I didn't want that to affect my patrons, and I didn't want that to continue affecting me. So I did take the jump. I did leap, and I've been pretty fortunate that so far it's working out really well. But it was kind of scary to do. But I think that a lot of things in life that are worthwhile are frightening, but still worthwhile.
Pursuing a passion? You won't get any argument from me on that. Since taking the leap, Nefertiti has been doing AD work on projects like Netflix original short film, Heartshot, New York Times OpDoc selection, My Disability Roadmap, and several other projects, including the Jennifer Lopez documentary titled Halftime, currently on Netflix.
AD is a bit of a gig economy, unless you're employed at a company, staff writer or staff narrator, and they can make a living with that, maybe as a 9 to 5. But audio description in my life, it's very much a gig economy. That's something that I think is true for any type of arts job. You have some boom times and you have some down times. But I thought that audio description as my passion was a little too narrow. So then I decided to explore outward and sort of make myself even more employable by trying to do more generalized voiceover work.
The gig economy, in general, is a hustle. You have to constantly think about and act on generating your next assignment. It's far different from being an employee. You're more like a farmer. You're cultivating the land, planting seeds and watering them. You respond to nature and do whatever you can to assure a rich harvest. Not bad for a city kid, right? Similar to farmers, I'm not talking about those corporate conglomerates. The harvest doesn't automatically mean a set payment. That often depends on other factors, many of which are bogus but out of their control. In the freelance environment, those seeds planted generate opportunities to work, which should lead to payment. I say should because, well, you might be surprised how often free or extremely undervalued labor is expected. Honestly, that's another episode, y'all. If you have stories about being expected to work for free, email me, readmymindradio@gmail.com. I need to hear from you. Seriously.
Can I go here? Is it too sensitive? I don't know.
You go wherever you want to go.
Okay. The pay in the audio description space is so unregulated. You could work for 4 or 5 different companies and they have different methods of paying. Some pay by the minute, some pay by the hour, some pay by the project, and some pay not a lot. Some others pay out of other countries. And so by the time you convert, it's not a lot of money here in this country. Hopefully, the audio description viewer gets a quality product and enjoys the show and has all sorts of access. But in the meanwhile, the folks who made that happen are not even able to make a living.
That's why you have to be a hustler, someone who can find multiple opportunities to make use of their talents.
I had the real privilege of going to Montclair State University to present a 2-hour lecture/workshop for Professor Maria Jose Garcia Vizcaino. She is this professor of language studies, and she's built into her curriculum this entire semester of audio description. It is a beautiful example of what's possible when somebody's really dedicated and believes in something.
Hey, stay tuned to hear more about Professor Maria Jose in a future episode.
I lectured for an hour, took questions and answers from some really engaged, excited students. We broke into a hands-on workshop. I brought a movie trailer, which only really consisted of some music and some drumming. And I challenged the students to break into groups and describe the first 30 seconds of the trailer. What we had as a fun thing was somebody of the group designated to stand up and do the description with the trailer playing in the background. And once that was all done and we discussed what was good, what could be improved upon, we watched the trailers, which had been already described in both English and Spanish, to give the students an idea of how did you compare to a professional rendering. And I'm happy to say that they compared pretty well. Maria Jose, you're doing a great job with your students. And again, it was a real privilege for me to be able to do that.
In addition to workshops for those interested in AD, she's presented to film students and more.
I participate on panels, I moderate panels, I facilitate workshops. Did it in my tech job and continue to do it here. It's one of my favorite aspects of this field that's getting more and more recognition.
And don't forget, that's in English and Spanish también. In addition to us both being blind AD narrators, we both come at this from intersectional space. So, tú eres Latina, ¿sí? Dominicana?
Hey, Dominicana, mi gente. Okay. In terms of my more Latino side, I actually learned Spanish before I learned English. Some people have a hard time believing me, but it's true. I'm first generation born American, but I'm very Dominican still. I'm very Latina. It's something I'm very proud of. Unfortunately, though, there doesn't seem to be much by way of Spanish audio description. Quality Spanish audio description. It's getting better slowly but surely. But historically, and still right now at the time of this recording, Spanish audio description is nowhere near as buttoned up as English audio description is. And some people have complaints about English audio description. So imagine the condition of Spanish audio description. It is nowhere near as equitable as English audio description. This idea of more Latinos being on screen in movies and in TV shows, documentaries about us, and that's fantastic. We're proliferating the cultural consciousness. But wow, I hear a lot of white people describing this stuff. And it's like, white people, hey, you got enough to describe. Where are my Latinos at?
Once upon a time, in a faraway land called Washington Heights. Say it so it doesn't disappear.
Washington Heights!
Lights up on Washington Heights. Up at the break of day, I wake up and I got this little...
In the Heights. It is by Lin-Manuel Miranda, he of Hamilton fame. This was his big claim to fame before Hamilton, actually. And it's a play based in Washington Heights, right here in New York City. I've got family living in Washington Heights. The person describing it in the American version, because there is also a UK version, I believe is a white woman. And I don't agree with that choice.
Smooth operator, all damn.
She has a lovely voice, very clear. Her diction is beautiful. She does a wonderful job. This is not a reflection on her as an artist, a narrator. You mean to tell me there wasn't a Latina woman or even a man that could be casted to have done that job? I have a really hard time with that. That speaks to the cultural competency. Like we're seeing more diversity on screen, the audio description should also reflect that diversity. It should match not just the script to the vision of what the director is trying to make happen, trying to engender in viewers, but also the narrator who is saying these words, being part of that community.
This is me.
And yes, the writer should also be, I think, of that community.
Work hard. You live by the rules. The money will come. The things will come.
You ready?
I've been saving up all my pennies in my piggy bank for this day.
Today's all we got, so we cannot stop. This is our block.
If I may give an example of The Harder They Fall, excellent, I think, audio description, down to the point where they describe micro braids. They describe the different skin color. A really good example there of writing that clearly researched everything from what to call the different skin tones to the different hairstyles, all things that are of import to blind people of color. Other people too, I'm sure. Particularly us, since historically we haven't heard about us. We haven't heard about ourselves. Having people who match the content to make a quality audio description script and narration is, I think, crucial and really speaks to the cultural competency that is still lacking in a lot of ways in this field.
Personally, I'd like to see more people in the blind community, more people of color, talking about this issue. Do you hear the conversation?
I really don't. And I think that's part of this idea of, well, let's just be grateful to even have it at all. Let's not stir the pot because they know that audio description is a thing. So many people aren't aware that audio description exists. I know I live in this bubble where everybody knows what audio description is, of course, right? I'm in the field now and I'm a consumer and all this, and all my friends know about it. My family knows about it. Everyone I talk to, if media comes up, I talk to them about audio description. So in my world, it seems like everybody's aware. But in the grand scheme of things, there are many, many, many who don't even know that this is an option for them. And those who do, a lot of them don't even question the fact that they don't hear details such as hair texture or skin color or different types of clothing, etc. They just default to this all must be a white narrative. Unless we hear like an accent or something like that, we may not know.
As consumers of audio description, it's our place to provide critical feedback. That includes those things we like and don't.
Access to information. I want to hear about skin color. I want to hear about set design. I want to hear about lighting. I want to hear about steamy sex scenes. I want to hear about gender stuff that's going on. If there's space for it, I want to hear about it. It's getting better, but historically, audio description has been very sanitized and, in my opinion, almost infantilized. I don't know if it's because there's this image of like, oh, protect the poor blind people. I don't quite understand why that's the way it's been. People are waking up and people are listening and taking note to the fact that we are well-rounded individuals. We are of this world. And so race does matter. Representation matters.
Back on the professional side of AD, Nefertiti and I got to work together on multiple projects, including an appearance right here, where she provided the audio description in a YGBD episode featuring Lateef McLeod. She was the AD narrator during the ACB Awards Gala, which I had the honor of hosting. And I had the privilege of narrating her AD script for a film by Cy Dodson titled Say His Name, 5 Days for George Floyd. Big shout out to Stephen Letness, one of the film's composers, himself an AD consumer. He got the buy-in from Cy to produce an AD track for the film. He contacted Roy Samuelson, who curated the all-blind team to produce the track.
This was a really fascinating opportunity. I, as the writer, Serena Gilbert as the quality control specialist, the one and only Thomas Reed as the narrator, a combination, I believe, a team effort between Byron Lee and Chris Snyder as the engineers. All blind folks. We had the opportunity to come together as an all-blind team to make this documentary accessible by way of audio description. And I think we did that beautifully. It is something that I will always be honored to have been a part of, especially holding the controversial role of being a writer while blind.
It's not the first time we talked about this here on the podcast. I think I've been talking about this idea before I even knew of a blind person writing AD. It's understandable that some people, especially those who are not blind, would be curious as to how this is accomplished. I can see how other blind people would be interested too. What's not cool is the fact that it became controversial.
Controversy came from both sides, from the sighted folks, who I totally expected to get some blowback from, but also my fellow blind people who couldn't fathom how it was done. When you don't understand something, I guess it's human nature to question it or to naysay it or doubt it or what have you. But through the use of technology and a sighted assistant and my skills as someone who writes, I was able to do it. And I'm very proud of the job that I did. Blind people, yes, they can write visual experiences.
I would think it would hurt when it comes from inside the community.
Yeah, when your own community, the community you're trying to represent, the community you're trying to uplift, the community you are trying to model what's possible for, says to you, you can't do that. When your own community turns the ableism that the whole world slaps you with every day, that is very hurtful. And that is very discouraging. But for one thing, I had already committed to it. And when I commit to something, I see things through. I mean, there has to be a real tragedy for me to not follow through on something I committed to. Like, my word is my bond. That's true. I wasn't going to let you and the rest of the team down. And I wasn't going to let myself down. Yeah, it hurt. It hurt. There were Facebook posts and things on Twitter and even people in my own life questioning and the like. And I decided that I was going to turn it around.
From my conversations with Neff, I don't think she has a problem with questions. It's more of the assumption and the insinuation or downright claim that she can't. Which, by the way, translates to we can't. You were getting negativity before you even did it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Ableism is real, and internalized ableism is real. I got a lot of positives too, but the aspect of all this that hurts is the negative coming from your own kind, if you will. Yeah. Very sad. It was a bit of a rude awakening for me. I'm glad I had it because I'm definitely awake now. But at the time, yeah, it was bewildering, honestly.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. But at the same time, it's one thing to deal with it when it's done. But when you're going in, like you're going into the fight, quote unquote, and everybody thinks you can't do it, you can either start to believe that and it messes your whole stuff up, or you can take that as fuel and say, I got this, I'm gonna show y'all.
Belief in self, I think, is a big part of it. The thing is that it was published early on to Facebook. And I was alerted to, do you know what's going on Facebook? And there are these comments and blah, blah, blah. And I log on and I see this post and I see these comments and I'm like, okay, I'm in the fishbowl now, I guess. I had to deal with it. I was fielding these questions and these negative comments and dealing with a lot of anger as well that I didn't want to let show because that's just not professional. I'm not about making enemies or what have you. A lot of keeping it to myself and venting to family and having a quality product at the end of it all. People out there, if you have the opportunity, don't squander it. Check this documentary out. It's really beautiful work and a real example of what's possible when folks come together with a shared passion and skills and a dedication. And we just happen to be blind. Big deal.
I have to tell you, I respect the way Nefertiti handled this situation. She's classy. Word to the wise, be careful what you say on social media. Not everyone is as classy. I'm just saying. What did you take away from the experience?
Sometimes when you are trying to maybe break a wall down or do away with a barrier or do something unorthodox, people who are in this field, who you would think are less encumbered by ableist thoughts and ableist ways of carrying themselves, a superiority complex. There were a couple of people who showed their real colors, I think, throughout that situation of what? A blind writer? That was a lesson for me, too, that just because you're doing something, that doesn't mean that you are necessarily of that thing.
You and some folks created a Twitter group for AD. What's that all about?
It's called the Audio Description Twitter Community. If you use the website and the Twitter app, you can participate in communities. And these are spaces where people come together who are of like mind. And I and my partner co-founded the Audio Description Twitter Community. And this is pretty rapidly, I'm very proud to say, growing place for all things description, audio description, image description, self-description. We want to know about all the panels, the latest, what we call hashtag AD News. Some companies announce, oh, we just did this, we just did that. now on Netflix with audio description, now on Amazon with audio description, etc. And so we post that. We post reviews of audio description that we've seen. We talk about the quality of audio description, everything from mono audio to surround sound, all that sort of thing. Jobs as well in audio description get posted on there. Classes. It's for all things AD, and it's on Twitter. Please join us. You just search for audio description.
I'll link to the group on this episode's blog post at reidmymind.com.
Whoever you may be, professional, consumer, it doesn't matter. We want you.
Continuing with that energy of sharing, Nefertiti offers advice for other blind AD enthusiasts interested in pursuing opportunities in the field, as well as for advocates.
Be aware of what you're getting into. It's beautiful work, but like with anything, it does have its pitfalls. Prepare yourself for those, but also really focus and celebrate your successes and improve on your craft. If you're a voiceover artist coming into this, keep studying, keep learning. If you're a writer coming into this, study other people's work. And if you're a consumer, consume as much as possible. Let these companies know that you're out here. Let them know what's going wrong, but also let them know what's going right. Remember, accessibility is a human right, and part of accessibility is access to visual content. And audio description is one of the best ways to make that happen for us. We need to advocate for it. We need to, through our collective voices, amplify our cause. We are here, and we are worthy.
Where can the people learn more about you, follow you, find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm Nefertiti Matos Olivares. I'm on Twitter at NefMatOli. Email me if you'd like to. nefmatoli@gmail.com. NefMatoli@gmail.com.
That stands for Nefertiti Matos Olivares. All right? If there's anybody out there who doesn't realize this, let me let you know right now. Nefertiti is an official member of the Read My Mind radio family. Do not get it twisted. She is official.
And I got the t-shirt to prove it.
In addition to her freelance work, Nefertiti is a part of the Social Audio Description Collective. That's a group of diverse individuals who write, QC, narrate, record, and mix audio description for a variety of projects. You can check out the episode featuring Social AD from the 2021 Flipping the Script season, which I'll link to on this episode's blog post. We've grown since that episode. Yeah, They had room for a brother, and I've been wanting to hang with them for a while. A bunch of go-getters. I'm just really honored to be a part of the collective. I hope you all really felt the vibe of this episode. I'm sure many of you are contemplating breaking out on your own, moving forward with your passion. Of course, be smart about it, but also be brave. That doesn't mean you won't have fear. It just means that you'll do it anyway. On that note, I want to send a big shout out and thanks to my guy, Tony Swartz, for the audio editing assist with this episode. I've been a bit nervous about finding a team to help with some production, but Tony honestly made the process fun and easy. What the heck was I all scared about? You know, there's nothing to be scared about subscribing to Read My Mind Radio. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. In fact, we're even available where you may not get your podcasts. I'm talking about YouTube. For those who like to consume content on that platform, we're there too. No visuals, just the podcast artwork and the audio. We're available via your smart speaker too. Just ask it to play Read My Mind Radio by T. Reed on your favorite podcast app. Transcripts and more are over on readmymind.com. Well, actually, this could be the scary part. You have to make sure you spell it correctly. That's R to the E.
D, and that's me in a place to be.
Like my last name. Peace.